Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rosa Parks mock trial. I am Jack Agawa, the bailiff and court clerk in this courtroom. Please turn off all cell phones and pagers. If I hear a phone go off, I will confiscate it. You are free to take pictures, but please do not use distracting flashes. Once the trial starts, the judge will not tolerate any talking or outbursts of emotion. I don't want to have to kick anyone out of this courtroom. Thank you. Before we begin, I would like to introduce Ty Alper to say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's great that there's so many people here. I'm sorry we don't have enough chairs for all of you, but everyone's thrilled that so many people made it. I wanted to just spend a couple minutes acknowledging and thanking a couple people, and then giving you a very brief background and introduction to what you're about to see. So first, I want to acknowledge my partner in crime and co-teacher, James Stevens. James was my student a couple years ago here, and one day we were talking, and I was just musing about how it might be fun to teach a mock trial in Rachel's class. And then he totally called my bluff and said, well, let's do it. And so I had to do it. And neither one of us really knew what we were doing. At least James had participated in a mock trial at some point in his life, unlike me. We both Googled how to teach mock trial a lot. But he's been a great partner. He doesn't have kids at Rosa Parks. He has no connection to Rosa Parks, but was willing to put in the time to work with these guys. They loved him. They found what he does a lot more interesting than what I do. And it's been great having James to teach this class. Because he's a real lawyer who has to do real lawyer stuff, he couldn't be there for a couple of classes, and we were really lucky and fortunate to have Alana Edelstein-Kopke. Where is she? Oh, right here. Also a former student of mine who came and filled in and worked with the kids for the last few classes. So we're all very grateful to Alana. And also to my wife, Tamar, who also filled in at the last minute to coach the kids a couple times as well. So thank you to Alana and Tamar. I want to quickly thank the Rosa Parks teachers who are here, particularly the 5th grade teachers who were so supportive of this program, who put up with what I gather was a lot of fighting about whether Timmy McGraw was guilty or not. And so it's always appropriate to recognize our teachers, but particularly given that we're at the end of a very long school year, can all of the Rosa Parks teachers who are in the audience just stand up and be recognized? And of course, Principal Paco Furlan, who is also incredibly supportive. Paco, can you wave? Okay, so enough about the grown-ups. Let me just talk about the kids for a second. One thing I wanted to say by way of introduction to what this is to say this is not a play. It was not scripted. We gave the kids a fact pattern, and they came up with the arguments, with the questions that they wanted to ask in their examinations. We worked with them, but but they weren't handed a script to read. The prosecution has not seen the defense and vice versa. They haven't watched each other practice. The lawyers who are cross-examining the witnesses have never, as in real life, haven't had a chance to question the student who's playing the witness. So it requires sort of creativity and problem solving and thinking in a way that we found really exciting and challenging. So I wanted to mention that about what it is in case none of you, like us, have ever seen a mock trial. And then the last thing is about these kids that I wanted to say that James and I, and Alana and Tamar too, are incredibly proud of them. They put in a lot of work. We had about 13 or 14 sessions, only about 45 minutes long. They got the fact pattern for this trial just about 5 weeks ago, so we only had about 5 45-minute long classes to do this in. And they've got a lot going on. If you're a 10 or 11-year-old, your last week of 5th grade apparently is a pretty busy week. Griffin and Dylan just last night won an epic 10-inning Little League championship game. Olivia just finished a run of Alice in Wonderland. All 16 of these kids are graduating from elementary school tomorrow morning. So we should give them a hand for that. So they've got a lot going on, and what we're teaching them is the same thing we teach our law students. It's trial advocacy. They're learning the same things that we teach in this law school. So it's at a really high level, and we were really impressed, blown away really by what they were able to do in putting this together in a really, really short period of time. The last thing I want to say is about clapping. I want to ask you to suppress your desire to applaud the performances until after it's all over. When we've had the classes, we've talked about courtroom rules, where everyone has to be very quiet and respectful, and there isn't clapping or cheering after each student performs or his or her part of the trial. So please try to be quiet, respectful, and attentive, and let the lawyers and the witnesses concentrate on the questions being asked, what the judge is saying, and the jury that they're trying to convince. I want to thank also, of course, our jurors who are lined up against the wall, and our judge, who you'll meet in a moment, also for taking the time to do this. So with that, I will turn it back over to Sheriff/Clerk Igawa.
All rise. The Honorable Demetrius Agratellis presiding. Alameda County Superior Court presiding.
Okay, he's got to go. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. I gotta go. Okay.
You may be seated. The clerk will call the first case.
Now calling case number 13CR3412, People versus Timmy McGraw. Lawyers, please come forward. Oh.
Please bring in the defendant. Ms. Oliver, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Pancoast, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well, Mr. Igawa, please bring in the jury. Thank you, members of the jury. I will now explain the presumption of innocence and the people's burden of proof. A defendant in a criminal case is presumed to be innocent. This presumption requires that the people prove a defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you with an abiding conviction that the charge is true. The evidence need not eliminate all possible doubt because everything in life is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. In deciding whether the people have proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, you must compare and consider all the evidence that was received throughout the entire trial. Unless the evidence proves the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, he is entitled to an acquittal, and you must find him not guilty. You alone must judge the credibility or believability of the witnesses. In deciding whether the testimony is true and accurate, use your common sense and experience. You may believe all, part, or none of any witness's testimony. Consider the testimony of each witness and decide how much of it you believe. Among the factors that you may consider are: how well could the witness see, hear, or otherwise perceive the things about which the witness testified? How well was the witness able to remember and describe what happened? What was the witness's behavior while testifying? Did the witness understand the questions and answer them directly? Was the witness's testimony influenced by a factor such as a bias or prejudice, a personal relationship with someone involved in the case, or a personal interest in how the case is decided? The defendant, Mr. McGraw, is charged with one count of vandalism in violation of Section 594 of the California Penal Code. To prove that the defendant is guilty of this crime, the people must prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, 1, that the defendant maliciously damaged or destroyed personal property, and 2, that the defendant did not own the property. Someone acts maliciously when he or she intentionally does a wrongful act. Let us proceed with opening statements. Mr. Hernandez, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a case about a sports rivalry that got out of hand. We are here today to prove that Timmy McGraw is guilty. Timmy destroyed a piece of precious artwork belonging to an innocent victim, Rosemary Martinez. On February 10, 2013, Timmy McGraw knocked off the head of Miss Martinez's papier-mâché cougar, and he also wrote Yellow Jackets on the cougar. By doing that, he committed the crime of vandalism. You will hear testimony from Rosemary Martinez. She is 65 years old and has lived in her house in 6th Street in Berkeley for 20 years. Several years ago, she asked her artist friend to build a life-size papier-mâché cougar to place in her front yard. It's been in her yard ever since, and it is one of her most precious possessions. You will hear from Ms. Martinez that on the night of February 10, 2013, she heard a loud noise outside her house. She ran outside and saw a boy with a baseball bat in his hand. The cougar's head was knocked off and had "Go Yellow Jackets" written on it. The boy ran away and she called the police. You are also going to hear from Officer William Jones of the Berkeley Police Department, who was working that night and got a call to be on the lookout for a boy wearing a hat with a baseball bat, who was wanted in connection with an act of vandalism at Miss Martinez's house. Officer Jones will tell you that he saw the defendant, Timmy McGraw, walking near Miss Martinez's house with a baseball bat in his hand. The bat had what looked like papier-mâché on it. Officer Jones took Timmy to Miss Martinez's house to see whether he was the boy she had seen. She said he was. You're going to hear that the reason Timmy vandalism the cougar is that this was part of an ongoing fight between the Berkeley High and Albany High soccer teams. Timmy is the captain of the Berkeley High soccer team. He was mad that the mascot for his school, the Yellow Jackets, had gotten eggs thrown at it. from the audience at a recent Berkeley Albany game. You will hear from Amelia Smith, a junior at Albany High, who was at that game. She heard Timmy say the Cougars are going to pay for this. Ladies and gentlemen, Timmy McGraw followed through on that threat. He used this bat to destroy Miss Martinez's cougar, even though it had nothing to do with her or with the rivalry between the Berkeley and Albany High. Ladies and gentlemen, listen carefully to all of the witnesses. After you have heard all of the testimony in this case, you will know that Timmy McGraw is guilty of vandalism.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Ms. Albert, would the defense like to make an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about mistaken identity. Our client, Timmy McGraw, is not guilty. Mr. McGraw did not knock the head of Miss Martinez's cougar. He did not write Yellow Jackets on it, and he wasn't even there. Somebody did knock the head off Miss Martinez's cougar, and nobody deserves to have that happen to them. But the evidence will show that Timmy McGraw had nothing to do with it. At the time that Miss Martinez's cougar was vandalized, Timmy McGraw was responsibly working at the UA movie theater in downtown Berkeley. In fact, you will hear from his boss, Maria McDonald. She will tell you that Timmy McGraw was working that night and was working until 10:30 p.m. The evidence will show that the vandalism happened outside Miss Martinez's house at 10:05 p.m., so Mr. McGraw could not have been the perpetrator. Mr. Hernandez told you about a lot of witnesses, but listen carefully. You will not hear a single witness tell you that he or she actually saw Mr. McGraw knock the head off the cougar. Nobody will come in here to say that they saw Mr. McGraw commit this crime. Now you will hear from Miss Martinez that she saw a boy outside her house, and she later identified him as Mr. McGraw. But you will also hear that there are many reasons to doubt that identification. She had just woken up. It was dark outside. She only saw him for about a second, and even then, her description to the police did not completely match what Mr. McGraw was wearing when Officer Jones arrested him. Mr. Hernandez told you about Officer Jones, but you're going to hear that Officer Jones is not the impartial police officer that you would expect. The evidence will show that actually he is biased against Mr. McGraw. Mr. Hernandez also told you about Amelia Smith, who claims she heard Mr. McGraw say that the Cougars are going to pay for the egging of the Yellow Jacket mascot. But the evidence will show that Ms. Smith's testimony is not credible. First of all, she is biased. You will hear that she is on the Albany soccer team, and Mr. McGraw is the captain of the Berkeley High soccer team. Second, the evidence will show that there is no way she could have heard what she claims to have heard over the roar of the crowd that day. Finally, you will hear a perfectly innocent explanation for why Mr. McGraw had the bat and why it had what looked like paper mache on the end of it. After you hear all of the evidence, my colleague, Ms. Pankhurst, will stand here before you and ask you to return the only fair verdict in this case, not guilty.
Thank you. The prosecution will call your first witness.
The prosecution, the people call Ms. Martinez.
promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Good evening, Miss Martinez.
Good evening.
Please state your name for the record.
Rosemary Martinez.
Can you spell your last name?
Yes. Martinez.
Where do you live?
1600 6th Street, Berkeley.
How long have you lived there for?
About 20 years.
How close are you to the Berkeley High School soccer field?
A few blocks.
Did you go to Berkeley High?
No.
Did you go to Albany High?
No.
Have you ever been to an Albany High soccer game?
No.
Have you ever been to a Berkeley High soccer game?
No.
Where did you grow up?
In Indiana.
Do you know anybody that attends Albany High?
No.
Do you know anybody that attends Berkeley High?
No. No.
Do you like to travel?
Yes.
Do you bring anyone back from the places that you travel to?
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Oklahoma?
Yes.
What did you do when you returned from that trip?
I asked my artist friend Josie if she could make me a life-sized waterproof papier-mâché cougar because I had seen some in Oklahoma.
Did your friend make that cougar for you?
Yes, she did.
Can you describe this cougar?
Well, it's life-sized, black, and papier-mâché.
How important is this cougar to you?
It's one of my most prized possessions.
Where did you put the cougar?
In my front yard.
Why?
Because I want everyone to enjoy it just as much as I did.
I'm going to direct your attention to the night of February 10th, 2013.
Okay.
What were you doing that night at around 10 p.m.?
Well, I had been watching TV and I had dozed off.
Did anything unusual happen?
I heard a loud boom outside of my window.
What was that boom?
Well, I wasn't exactly sure for a minute, and then I ran to my window and I and I saw a tall, young, white male.
Could you see pretty well?
Yeah.
Were there any lights on?
Yeah.
What lights?
My porch light, my living room light, and my TV light.
Was he holding anything?
Yes.
What happened next? Wait, no. What did he do when he looked at you?
Well, he kind of looked at me for a second and then he ran away.
What happened after that?
I called the police.
Had the boy done anything else to the cougar?
Yeah, he had knocked the head off my cougar.
What did you tell the police when you called them?
I told them that I had seen a white male outside of my window and the head of my cougar rolling around.
Did the police bring anybody back?
Yes,
Who did they bring back?
Timmy McGraw.
Did they ask you if this was the boy you saw?
Yeah,
Did he look like the kid you saw?
yeah,
Do you see the boy in the courtroom today?
yes.
Can you point him out for me? What is he wearing?
He is wearing a little suit.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Mr. McGraw. No further questions. Wait.
Thank you. Ms. Hari?
Good evening, Miss Martinez.
Good evening.
On February 10th, you dozed off while watching TV.
Yeah,
You went to sleep at 9 p.m.
yes,
and woke up at 10 p.m.
yes,
So you slept for about an hour.
yes,
You were fast asleep.
yeah,
You were woken up by a noise, right?
yes,
You had been sleeping for an hour before being woken up.
yes,
The noise that woke you up was at 10:05 p.m.
yes,
It was pretty dark out at 10:05 p.m.
yeah,
The sun had gone down.
yes,
You were inside the house when you saw the boy.
yes,
And the boy was outside the house.
Yes.
The lights were on in your house?
Yes, and there was one outside.
The TV was on.
Yes.
Lights come out of the TV, right?
Yes.
But it was dark outside.
Yes.
The boy that you saw was wearing a baseball cap.
Yeah.
Not a sombrero, right?
No.
The boy was in the yard.
Yes.
Not on the porch.
No.
Isn't it true that you told the police that you only pretty sure that the boy who he brought to you was the boy that you saw earlier that night, Timmy McGraw?
Yes.
Your memory was better then when you spoke to the police than it is now.
Yeah.
The boy looked at you for a second,
Yeah.
and then he ran.
Yeah.
You didn't see the color of the boy's hair.
No.
You didn't see the color of his eyes.
No.
You didn't see the boy's face clearly.
Yeah, no.
You never really saw anyone actually hit the head off the cougar with a bat.
That's correct.
Thank you. No further questions.
Your next witness.
The people call Officer William Jones.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Good evening, Officer Jones.
Good evening.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
William Jones, Jones.
What is your profession?
I am a police officer.
What city are you employed in?
Berkeley.
How long have you been a police officer?
10 years.
Let me direct your attention to the night of February 10th, 2013, around 10 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
Did you get a call around that time?
Yes.
What time exactly? What was the call about?
To keep an eye out for a short white male wearing a Berkeley High t-shirt and holding a baseball bat.
What did you find? What did you do next?
I searched the area.
Did you find him?
Yes.
Around what area did you find him?
Around 4th Street.
What was he carrying?
He was carrying a baseball bat.
On the bat?
Yes.
What?
It looked like paper mache.
What was he wearing as a shirt?
Berkeley High t-shirt.
How tall was he?
5 feet.
Did you find out what his name was?
Yes.
Would his name be then?
Wait, what was the question?
What is his name?
Timmy McGraw.
Okay. What did you do next?
I asked why he had his bat.
And what did he say?
He always had that bat with him.
Did you ask any other questions to him?
Yes.
What?
I asked if he could come with me.
And what did he say?
Fine.
Did it seem like he wanted to come with you?
No.
Where did you take him?
To Miss Martinez's house.
What did you ask her?
If this was the boy she saw.
What did she say?
That she was almost positive it was him.
How sure was she?
Positive.
What did you do next?
I arrested him.
Do you see the boy you arrested in the crowd?
Yes.
What is he wearing?
Gray suit.
Let the record reflect that the witness has identified the defendant, Timmy McGraw. Officer Jones, I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as prosecution exhibit number 1. Do you recognize this object?
Yes.
What is it?
Timmy McGraw's baseball bat.
How do you know that this is the same bat that Timmy McGraw had when you arrested him?
Because I took it from him and put it into, what's it called? The exhibit.
Your Honor, at this time, the prosecution offers Exhibit 1 into evidence. No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Barrios?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You got a call on February 10th, 2013 at 10:10 p.m.
Yes.
It was a vandalism at a house on 6th Street.
Yes.
They told you to be on the lookout for a boy wearing a Berkeley High t-shirt
Yes.
with a baseball cap,
Yes.
possibly with a baseball bat.
Yes.
You didn't see Timmy McGraw until 10:50.
Yes.
That was 40 minutes after you got the call.
Yes.
When you saw Timmy McGraw, he was walking down the street with the baseball bat.
Yes.
He was using the bat like you would use a cane to walk with.
Yes.
Timmy was wearing a Berkeley High t-shirt.
Yes.
A lot of kids wear that shirt, don't they?
Yes.
When you talked to Timmy, he said he always had that bat.
Yes.
Timmy said he had just gotten off of work.
Yes.
He was okay with coming with you.
Yes.
Timmy didn't hide.
No.
He didn't run.
No.
He was not wearing a baseball cap.
No.
He was wearing a sombrero. You brought Timmy to Miss Martinez
Yes.
to see if she could identify him.
Yes.
You didn't bring any other suspects to her,
No.
just Timmy.
Yes.
You didn't ask Miss Martinez to be a whole lineup of suspects.
Wait, what was the question?
You didn't ask Miss Martinez to be a whole lineup of suspects.
No.
Isn't it true, Officer Jones, you know Timmy long before you saw him the night of February 10th?
Yes.
You know Timmy because he's the same age as your son Marcus.
Yes.
Timmy got the lead spot in a play.
Yes.
Your son wanted the part.
Yes.
You said the only reason he got the part was because his mom begged the play's director.
Yes.
Your son didn't think that was fair.
No.
You didn't think that was fair either.
No.
No further questions.
Jones, you may step down. Next witness.
The people call Amelia Smith.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
The record.
Amelia Smith.
Can you spell that?
Smith.
Where do you go to school?
Berkeley, Albany High.
What grade are you in?
I'm a junior.
Do you play any sports?
Yes.
Does Albany High have any rivals?
Yes.
Who is their main rival?
Berkeley High.
What makes them rivals?
Every year they take turns trying to win the boys and girls soccer games.
Have there been any recent soccer games?
Yes.
Would Berkeley High players and fans have any reason to dislike Albany? Like what?
Well, at the last game, while the mascot was leaving, the Albany High fans threw eggs at the Berkeley High mascot, ruining it.
Were you there when the Berkeley mascot got egged?
Yes.
Do you know Timmy McGraw?
Yes.
How would you describe him?
He's a pretty nice guy, but he can get a little intense when he's mad.
Was Timmy at the game that day?
Yes.
mad when the yellow jacket got icked? Yes. How do you know?
Well, he got really mad and he said the Cougars are going to pay for this.
Are you sure that's what he said?
Yes.
No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Alper?
Good evening, Miss Smith.
Good evening.
You're on the girls' soccer team
Yes.
at Albany High School.
Yes.
Timmy goes to Berkeley High.
Yes.
He's the captain of the Berkeley soccer team.
Yes.
You think Timmy's a pretty nice guy.
Yes.
The Albany and Berkeley soccer teams are fierce rivals.
Yes.
You don't really like Berkeley High, do you?
No, it's not true.
You root against them
Yes.
when you're playing them.
Yeah, I do.
They're not your friends. You were at the game where the yellow jacket got egged.
Yes.
This was a game between Albany and Berkeley.
Yes.
There were lots of people there.
Yes.
There were lots of fans cheering for their team
Yes.
and booing the other team.
Yes.
Everyone was yelling.
Yes.
It was loud at that game, wasn't it?
Yes.
You were in the stands.
Yes.
You were 5 rows away from Timmy.
Yes.
You testified that Mr. McGraw said the Cougars are going to pay for this.
Yes.
You didn't actually hear him say this, though.
Yes. Yes.
So you didn't rely solely on your ears.
Yes.
You haven't had any training in lip reading, have you?
No.
For example, you haven't taken a lip reading class.
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Your next witness.
The people rest, Your Honor.
Thank you. The court will take a short 3-minute recess.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated while the court is in recess.
So we just have to continue doing that. So now we just have to keep the water. Where's the other water?
No comment about that.
No, I think they just haven't gone against each other.
Like, you know what teams like Montana, right?
Okay, so yeah, and also they brought out everything that I'm gonna say. So basically, make sure you say that thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do.
Like, you always
Say revised timesheets are not uncommon at the end. There's just a lot to say revised timesheets.
Oh my god, I should just tell it. Like, those close are given it is. So you admit? I mean, the thing is, you have to say no. So you admit that you like us in that? Also, Joyce is that everywhere.
She's in Zen mode.
Totally crushing the defense.
Yeah. But I don't think it comes from that.
After this recess, is there witnesses? You write on your hand. 5 minutes.
Yeah. My hand is do what hands do, it soaks it in and then I get a coffee.
You gotta sit it. So, watch out.
Wow. I've been doing it. Are you sure you don't want draw?
He's just kind of spaced out.
Stop one yet.
So we just have to continue doing this.
And win. And win. No, come on. Let's not get off.
Wait a minute. So Asia's doing direct.
Here, this one? Her. Okay, and who's doing directed you? Naomi. No, Naomi. Oh, no, right. Yeah, it's okay. That's okay. I had you. Yes. 5. That should be roaches. Somebody else first. Yeah. I haven't heard about this.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. Before we begin, we would like to recognize and thank Council Member Daryl Moore for attending. All right, the court is back in session. The Honorable Demetrius Agrotell is presiding.
Does the defense have any witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Maria McDonald.
Raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
Good afternoon, Miss McDonald.
Good afternoon.
Can you please state your name?
Maria McDonald.
Can you please spell your last name for the record?
McDonald.
What's your job?
I work at the UA movie theater.
Do you know Timmy McGraw?
Yes.
How do you know Timmy?
He is one of my employees.
Were you working the night of Sunday, February 10th, 2013?
I was not.
When does Timmy usually work?
Most Sunday nights until 9:30 or 10:30 p.m.
Was Timmy working the night of February 10th?
Yes.
What time did Timmy get off of work that night?
10:30.
How do you know what time he got off work that night?
I checked the timesheets.
Was there anything different on the timesheets than before?
Yes.
What is that?
9:30 was crossed out and 10:30 was in its place.
Do people ever make mistakes like that on the timesheets?
Yeah, it's not unusual that people revise the timesheets.
Do you know at any time he's lied on the timesheets?
No.
Is he a good, reliable employee?
Yes.
Do you know where Timmy lives?
I know he lives a 10-minute walk from the theater.
No further questions.
Ms. Imani?
Good evening, Miss McDonald.
Good evening.
My name is Kiana. I'm going to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
Timmy McGraw works for you, right?
Yes.
You don't want to have to hire a new employee, correct?
It wouldn't be too much of a hassle.
So you don't want Timmy to go to jail, do you?
Not particularly.
He usually signs out at around 9:30 to 10:30, yes?
Yes.
You testified that on the night of February 10th, Timmy signed out at 10:30, correct?
Yes.
You are basing that on his timesheet, right?
Yes.
Isn't it true that on the timesheet next to Timmy's name, 9:30, his original time was crossed out?
Yes.
And 10:30 was written next to it?
Yes.
10:30 was written in a different color.
Yes.
You weren't working at the movie theater that night, were you?
No.
So you didn't see him sign out?
No.
You didn't see him with your own eyes when he left the theater?
No.
And you really don't know whether or not he signed out at 10:30?
No.
No further questions.
Your next witness.
The defense calls Sally Ripstein.
Yes.
Good evening, Miss Ripstein.
Good evening.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Sally Ripstein. Ripsteen.
Do you know Timmy McGraw?
Yes.
How do you know him?
He's my friend.
Does Timmy have a prized possession?
Yes.
What?
His bat.
What about this bat makes it his prized possession?
The fact that his grandfather played with it as a boy and that his grandfather gave it to him.
How does Timmy usually use this bat?
He just carries it around.
Does he let anyone else use it?
No.
How do you know about the bat?
He talks about it a lot.
I'm showing you what has been marked as prosecution exhibit number 1. Do you recognize it?
Yes.
What is it?
Timmy's bat.
How do you know?
It has paper on the end.
Do you know why the paper is there?
Yes.
Why?
His brother tried to turn it into a lightsaber.
Why did turning it into a lightsaber involve gluing paper?
To make it more realistic.
No further questions.
Mr. Getting?
You've known Timmy for a long time, right?
Yes.
You're friends?
Yes.
Good friends?
Yes.
Spend a lot of time with him?
Yeah.
Isn't it true that he has a baseball bat?
Yes.
That he likes this bat?
Yes.
That he always keeps it with him?
Yes.
And you admit that that is his bat?
Yes.
I'm showing you what has been marked for identification as prosecution exhibit 1. What is it?
Timmy's bat.
Also, he carries it everywhere with him, right?
Yes.
And you claim the paper mache on his brother was caused by paper mache on the bat was caused by his brother, right?
Yes.
But he never lets anyone have the bat.
Yes.
And also, you're Timmy's friend, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't want him to go to jail, right?
No.
No further questions.
Does the defense have any further witnesses at this time?
No, Your Honor. The defense rests.
Thank you. Very well, members of the jury, that concludes the evidence in this case. We will take another short recess to allow the lawyers to prepare for closing arguments. The court will stand in recess for 5 minutes. Thank you.
This court is now in recess for 5 minutes. You may get up and leave your seats, but we will resume the trial in 5 minutes.
Did I do it right? You did great. So I think we got out all the facts you don't have to change anything. You just have to change it. Okay. You did great. It's funny, like they put away the bat. Like really bad? You can go. Oh, me too.
Where's Allison?
I like that. Me too.
Ty. Who's the person who's really impressed? He's on the city council. What? He's on the city council. Daryl Moore.
I know, I'm just sitting all day. Do you think jurors follow those rules, James? It's so tempting, though. That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh. I'm so glad I get it done. I was just like practicing. That actually don't need good luck. Then break the leg. Break the leg, man. No, I need it. No, yeah, I need it too. But I didn't say good luck. I wish better luck to myself. Look, all the people, they are not here. Why is he waving to me? Because air likes to move around. 1, 2, 3. Also, if you feel really, really nervous, I know you want to walk around, but gripping the podium, you can walk around. I can just like walk around. Yeah, you can do whatever you want. Sorry. Okay, ready? If you need water, this is the time to get it. Microphones are working. Well, I'll get first. And then, because that's the good thing. Oh no, I'm like, oh my gosh, she didn't say this. Oh no. Huh? Oh, perfect.
So, Ryan, what grade are you in? At Rosa Parks? At Marin? Where's that? In Berkeley, though.
Okay, start taking your seats, please.
So is there really a rivalry between Berkeley and Albany?
It's not actually that loud, so don't think that you can pretend you don't have a microphone and just, you know, you'll have it as a hand on backup, but really just pretend it's not there. Got it? Yeah, you can totally hear it, but I think if you think that it's making loud, are you practicing Oh. Say you were. You are with me. I haven't seen you. Pardon me?
Please take your seats. This court is now in session. The Honorable Demetrius Agatel is presiding.
Counselor, you ready for your closing arguments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Oliver, you may proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Mr. Hernandez told you at the beginning of the trial, this is a case about a sports rivalry that got out of hand. It definitely did. Now that you've heard all of the evidence in this case, you know beyond a reasonable doubt that Timmy McGraw is guilty of destroying Rosemary Martinez's cougar. I'm sure Ms. Pankos will talk a lot about reasonable doubt. And it's true, we have the burden to prove Timmy McGraw guilty beyond reasonable doubt. But the law does not say you can have no doubts about the defendant's guilt. You simply must have no reasonable doubts. Here, there are no reasons to doubt the defendant's guilt. The prosecution doesn't have to prove motive in a criminal case, but here we all know why the defendant did what he did. How do we know why he committed this crime? Amelia Smith told you why. She saw the defendant get furious when the yellow jacket got egged, and she heard the defendant say, "The Cougars are going to pay for this." Let me repeat that. This boy right here said, "The Cougars are going to pay for this." At that moment, the defendant made up his mind to seek revenge. And on the night of February 10th, 2013, he found what he thought was the perfect opportunity to exact this revenge. The problem was, he took out his revenge on a completely innocent person, Rosemary Martinez. Miss Martinez has lived in Berkeley for 20 years, but she grew up in Indiana. She didn't go to Berkeley or Albany High. She doesn't even know anyone who goes to either school. She could care less about the rivalry between Albany and Berkeley High soccer teams, but it was Rosemary Martinez's cougar that the defendant destroyed. The defendant was extremely angry at the Cougars, so he took his bat, that even his friend testifies he always has with him, swung it as hard as he could, and destroyed the cougar. At that moment, the bat became a weapon. And as Mr. Hernandez told you when the case began, this cougar might only be an ordinary object to most people, but it is, or it was before it got destroyed, one of Rosemary Martinez's most prized possessions. We've talked about why the defendant would commit this terrible crime, but now let's talk about how we know it was this boy who did the deed. You heard Miss Martinez say that the defendant was the one she saw outside her house that night. She identified him that night when Officer Jones brought him to her, and she identified him in this courtroom today. The defense might say it was late at night, dark, and she was groggy. But remember, the porch light was on, the light from her TV was on, and her living room light was on. And as for her being groggy, use your common sense. If you were asleep and heard a giant boom, would you wake up slowly or jump right up? I know I would jump right up. How else do we know that the defendant is the one who destroyed the cougar? When Officer Jones arrested the defendant, he noted there was some kind of paper stuck to the end of the bat, the same kind of paper used in paper mache. I don't think I need to remind you what Miss Martinez's cougar was made out of. We all know it was paper mache. Now, the defense would have you to believe this is all some kind of crazy, unfortunate coincidence. Miss Pankos will probably get up here and tell you there's a perfectly innocent explanation for the paper mache on the defendant's bat. That it was the defendant's little brother who somehow managed to get paper mache all over the bat. But remember, even Sally Ripstein,
who, because she is such good friends with Timmy, would probably say anything to keep him out of jail. Even she had to admit that the defendant never let the bat out of sight, that he practically slept with it. Do you really think he would leave it somewhere where his little brother would have the opportunity to put paper all over it? This story the defense is trying to get you to believe just doesn't make sense. Ladies and gentlemen, don't check your common sense at the door. Let's talk about this so-called alibi. The defense would ask you to believe that the defendant was at work when the cougar was beheaded. He wasn't. His boss even testified that she wasn't working the night the cougar got vandalized and doesn't know if the defendant was actually working. And this timesheet that originally showed the defendant getting off work at 9:30, which would give him plenty of time to commit the crime, but 9:30 was crossed off and 10:30 was written in. Ms. Pankos will probably say this was a mistake, but what's more likely? That the defendant, even though he's in high school, doesn't know how to read a clock? Or that he went back later and changed the timesheet so he could have an alibi? Remember, don't check your common sense at the door. What you have heard here today shows you that the defendant is guilty, beyond a reasonable doubt. The evidence not only places the defendant at the scene of the crime, but with a motive and a weapon in his hand. We ask you to return the only just verdict, that the defendant, Timmy McGraw, is guilty of destroying Rosemary Martinez's papier-mâché cougar.
Thank you, Ms. Pancoast.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. Thank you for your time and for your thoughtful consideration of this case. Today, you have a decision to make, a very important decision to make. As a jury, it is your job to distinguish between the evidence and the prosecutor's claims. Now let's just talk a minute about reasonable doubt. The judge has instructed you that unless you think Mr. McGraw is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, you must find him not guilty. Now, this case is just like a big puzzle. The prosecution wants you to see some pieces and not see all the others. But you, as a jury, need to see all the pieces and consider the picture they form. There are many reasons to doubt the prosecution's case, and you only need one to come to maintain Timmy's innocence. Now let's just walk through this case. There are many reasons to doubt whether Timmy was the boy Miss Martinez saw that night. First of all, Miss Martinez didn't see the crime committed. In fact, we do not have an eyewitness for this case. We do not have an eyewitness. None of these witnesses came up here, told you that they saw the crime committed. None of them. On top of all this, Miss Martinez had just woken up. She was tired, and she was groggy. So she walks to the window. She looks out into the dark night through a backlit window, because remember, the TV is on. Now, for all we know, Miss Martinez could have seen the reflection of her favorite news anchor in the window pane. And she saw the boy for 1 second. 1 second. Now just think about for a minute how Officer Jones conducted the identification process. Did he bring Miss Martinez 8 people who looked alike and matched her descriptions? No. He brought her 1 person. 1 person who only matched some of her descriptions. Officer Jones might as well have come to Miss Martinez and said, "I got the guy, right?" And even when asked by by Officer Jones if Miss Martinez correctly identified the defendant. Even then, Miss Martinez, she said she was only pretty sure it was Timmy. Pretty sure. So the closest the prosecution comes to an eyewitness is pretty sure. Can you hear the doubt in her testimony? Now let's talk about Officer Jones. The prosecution wants you to believe that because Officer Jones has been a police officer for 10 years, that he is credible. However, his credibility doesn't match up with the fact that Officer Jones has a grudge against Timmy. He has a grudge against Timmy because Timmy got the lead part in the school play that Officer Jones' son, Marcus, tried out for. And Officer Jones still doesn't think it's fair. We've all had grudges before, and we know how this can change the way we see someone. We start looking for something bad to happen to that person. Officer Jones' bias is a reason to doubt. Now, the prosecution wants you to think that because Timmy had a bat when Officer Jones arrested him, that he is guilty. But we know from Sally Ripstein that Timmy always has his bat. Just because Timmy has a bat does not mean he is guilty. We know from witness testimony that he is always carrying his bat. Now let's talk about this paper on the end of Timmy's bat. Prosecution wants you to think, because Timmy's bat had what looked like paper mache on the end, that he is guilty. But we know from Sally Ripstein that there was paper on the end of Timmy's bat because Timmy's brother once tried to turn his bat into a lightsaber by gluing papers to the end. Now, Miss Oliver talked about Amelia Smith. You know, I really don't think we need to spend too much time on Amelia Smith. There are already several reasons to doubt her testimony. Miss Smith claims, that she heard Timmy say, "The Cougars are going to pay for this," over the roar of the crowd. But she also said that she was 5 rows back and the crowd was yelling. You heard Miss Alper ask whether Miss Smith had any training in reading lips. What was her answer? No. And remember, Miss Smith plays on the rival team of the Yellow Jackets, the Cougars. There are many reasons to doubt her testimony, and her bias is just one of them. As if you haven't been presented with enough doubt, with enough gaps in the puzzle, don't forget about Maria McDonald. The crime was committed at 10:05 p.m. Now there's one big problem with accusing Timmy of this crime. The fact that Timmy was at work. Timmy was at work at the UA movie theater in downtown Berkeley until 10:30 p.m. We know this because Timmy's time card shows that he signed out of work at 10:30. Now we know, ladies and gentlemen, that no one can be in 2 places at one time. Now the prosecution wants you to believe that because Timmy's time card was crossed out and rewritten, though we can't trust it. But Maria McDonald told us the revised timesheets are not uncommon at the movie theater. Have you ever written the wrong date on a form and had to cross it out? That's all that happened here. Ladies and gentlemen, we have walked through the witness testimony. We have seen the doubt in the prosecution's case in each and every one of their witnesses. We have seen the gaping hole in the prosecution's case, the fact that there is no eyewitness, and the evidence that Timmy is at work. Now remember, the burden of proof. Mr. Timmy McGraw is innocent, and so proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. You know, Timmy is a good kid. He goes to school. He plays on sports teams. He has a job, and his boss trusts him. For Timmy, this is a big case, and you are the wise judges of this courtroom. You are. Your decision will affect the rest of Timmy's life. Timmy is not guilty of vandalizing Miss Martinez's cougar.
Members of the jury, you must now decide if Timmy McGraw is not guilty or guilty of vandalism. To prove that the defendant is guilty of this crime, the people must prove beyond a reasonable doubt, 1, that the defendant maliciously damaged or destroyed personal property, and 2, that the defendant did not own the property. Someone acts maliciously when he or she intentionally does a wrongful act. The fact that a criminal charge has been filed against the defendant is not evidence that the charge is true. You must not be biased against the defendant just because he has been arrested, charged with a crime, or brought to trial. A defendant in a criminal case is presumed to be innocent. This presumption requires that the people prove a defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. As I told you before, proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you with an abiding conviction that the charge is true. The evidence need not eliminate all possible doubt, because everything in life is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. But unless the evidence proves the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, he is entitled to an acquittal, and you must find him not guilty. You may now deliberate, and this court will stand in recess.
The jury will now deliberate for no more than 10 minutes. You are welcome to watch them deliberate or go out into the lobby. Court will reconvene in no more than 10 minutes.
So what we're going to do is we're going to have the jury deliberate. If you want to stay and watch them, you have to be quiet so we can hear them talk. You're just going to deliberate where you are, turn around and talk to each other, try to speak up. And if the people who are doing the food want to go set up, this would be a good time to do it. And everybody else who wants to stay, we'll just listen to them for 10 minutes and then see what happens.
I'm conflicted. So both sides concede that Timmy always has his back. So both sides concede that Timmy always had his back, right? I heard that clearly. But
Yeah, I
the
think
defense
so.
didn't explain why, if Timmy always has his back, Timmy's brother was able to take the bat for such an extensive project.
I don't get the paper mache, the paper making it more like a lightsaber. It does ring true.
Is that more realistic for you?
I'm even more concerned about the cross-off time card. That sounds suspicious to me. In a different color pen.
Kids, come up here. Kids.
Yeah.
Kids, come up here.
And how do you mistake a sombrero for a baseball cap?
And she's not even sure about that.
Where?
Right.
I'm not buying the motive. Yeah. The supposed statement, you're going to pay for this, was heard over the roar of a soccer game.
And what does that even mean? Maybe they mean they're going to win the next game or something.
Yeah. Doesn't mean I live right before in crowds, haven't you guys? Haven't you seen somebody saying something but you couldn't quite hear it, but you can see? I believe it.
Yeah. But does he mean it that way? Because in the context, you're going to pay for this.
What do you think, Ray?
I don't want a football
Do you
row.
think he's guilty or not?
Can you guys back up a little bit?
Yeah?
Fine, wherever you are. So just everyone come off the wall. All right, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, some kid walking with a baseball bat. That's kind of all we have.
But the paper mache is pretty big. I mean, why would you have paper mache on that? Stick to that. Like if you were
A good paper mache project.
Yeah,
that's police officer has an axe to grind with a kid. And all you know, I mean, so
Also, why would he be 2 blocks away from the crime scene 45 minutes later? That doesn't sound like someone who's guilty. You wouldn't.
Sounds like a bad thing.
Naturally violent.
I know. We know that. I want to know what the verdict is.
Right.
So you first the defense usually says I do.
so there was some sketch last night.
Yeah, about all the she did 2 IDs. She ID'd then, but then again in front of us, she said, "Hey, there he is again." So that makes me.
Yeah.
She wants to come up the show.
Right. Self-confirming.
Yeah.
And he was carrying a bat. I mean, as soon as she saw a kid with a bat, she's gonna think it's the kid.
Actually, I still have 2 more lines.
It does seem like if she only says a pretty
So the TV light and the house light would have made it theoretically more difficult to see outside into the dark, right? But that porch light was on, and the cougar was hanging from the porch, or sitting on the porch.
Oh, was the cougar sitting on the porch?
So how far was the cougar from the porch light? Like how far did it project? Was it hanging from a tree?
Didn't they say that Timmy or whoever it was in the yard, not on the porch?
Yes. So how much, how much light was actually?
Everybody?
Is there a street light in front of that house?
It wasn't. Buddha fence, Buddha fence, Buddha fence. Go prosecution, go prosecution. Go prosecution.
I had hope.
On the other hand, how many kids are walking around Berkeley at 10:40 p.m.?
Isn't he a junior in high school?
Yeah,
tall.
And he's got the motive.
I mean, he really.
But so does everyone else at Berkeley High.
True. Yeah. But he found revenge, and we don't have any evidence that anyone else at Berkeley High found revenge.
Like, they made the mascot. Couldn't he want to be something?
He did write "Go Wildcats" or whatever. Go Buffaloes or Yellow Jackets.
I'm so small because you're in this thing. Hi.
Here's my rationale for my
Hello? Hello? Two more minutes of deliberation. So if maybe everybody can take their seats.
Closing arguments were terrific.
I think he probably did it, but not beyond reasonable doubt. I do think there are other possible explanations.
More likely than not, taken together.
like, I hate him.
Although maybe an Albany high player can come into the movie.
No, I thought the Jack is done. Also, we don't think magic the jury.
Hello, kids. Kids, take your seats.
Sounds like we're home.
Aw.
When did you graduate? Oh, last year.
Please
take your seats. Now can I go? Please.
Please take your seats. Use this microphone. Please take your seats.
Oh, no, I think that's put in your pocket.
Please take your seats.
We're not missing anyone. We're not missing anyone.
Please take your seats. Please take your seats.
Yeah, they already were.
Should I repeat it? Please take your. Please take your seats. Please take your seats. This court is now in session.
Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
Yes. Yes, Your Honor, we have.
And what is the verdict?
Your Honor, this is a hung jury. We were not.
Please tell us what the vote was.
There are 8 members that believe the defendant is not guilty and 4 that believe he is.
Thank you.
Not everybody.
That Please remain calm. Ladies and gentlemen, this court's.
Oh, sorry. My bad. Have to do it again. In this court, they win.
The jury, thank you for your service, and you are now excused. And I would like to personally thank these young people who did an outstanding job of today. I was on the Alameda County Superior Court for 20 years, and I don't think I ever heard closing arguments that good. Also, Jackie Gawa, you're the best bailiff court clerk I ever had. And for the attorneys for the prosecution, could we have a hand for Griffin Banks, Dylan Getting, Adrian Hernandez, Kiana Imani, and Maya Oliver? And for the defense, Rachel Alper, Naomi Barrios, Asia Guzman, Malika Hari, and Zoe Pancoast. And could we have a special hand for the coaches, Ty Alper and James Stevens? Counsel, if any of you decide to go to law school, let me know. I'll write a letter of recommendation for you. And for the audience, you can rest assured that the next generation is in good hands. I don't know what's going on in Washington, but if these young people were in Washington, we wouldn't have the problems that we're having now. And with that, I'll say thank you. And Mr. Igawa, you have the last word.
What? Before Cynthia would like to say a few words, I'm pretty sure.
I just wanted to, on behalf of all the parents from the kids, we have, oh. Okay, so on behalf of...
You realize who I am? Could we have a big round of applause for these wonderful witnesses? Sarah Bruno, Nico Estabanez, Kayla Lenro, Olivia Luong Brown, and Solia Valentine. And I sat through the same trial that you sat through, and I don't know how I would have voted. I was a hung jury also. But I'm not going to tell you what the numbers were for me. Anyway, Ty and James, thank you for the experience allowing me to participate in this wonderful program that you put on. Mr. Go.
Picture? All right. So, is this on? Can you guys hear me? Yeah. So how many weeks was it? Like 10 weeks? 12 weeks? Right? Mm-hmm. And it was, I have to say that it started at 8 and went to 9. The kids had to come in early, and there was never a week where Dylan did not jump up and want to go. It was so exciting. And every week the parents got a sheet of paper, information about what was going on, what we needed to do. So on behalf of the parents, we really, really want to thank Ty and James for their amazing dedication, patience, and just an amazing training that they gave to our kids. There was no question when we wanted to get something for Ty what he might like. For those of you who know Ty, knows he's a Giants fan. So we got him a gift certificate for the Giants. European soccer. And that was a little harder for me, so we went ahead and just got your gift certificate.
Ladies and gentlemen, this court stands in recess. Please proceed to the lobby outside the courtroom for a reception. Thank you. Let's give a hand.